David Dow has more.
The death of Natalie Wood, just 43, shocked Hollywood and sent streams of mourners to the home where she lived with her 2 children and husband, actor Robert Wagner. Wagner went into seclusion. Only 2 days earlier, the couple sailed to California's Catalina Island on their yacht. With them, the yacht's skipper and actor Christopher Walken, with whom Miss Wood had been making a film. Saturday night, they dined ashore, then returned to the yacht. A short time later, Wagner said he discovered his wife missing. Yesterday, her body was found floating in a cove about a mile away. Nearby was the yacht's motorized dinghy, which, according to a family spokesman, Miss Wood frequently took out alone. Coroner's deputies say she apparently died of accidental drowning. Just how, they're not sure. Natalie Wood and her family had become prominent fixtures in Hollywood's civic and social affairs. From her first role as a child, she had always seemed destined for stardom. At age 9 in Miracle on 34th Street.
I'm Santa Claus. Oh, you don't believe that, do you?
Mm-mm. You see, my mother's Mrs. Walker, the lady who hired you.
Oh.
But I must say you're the best looking one I've ever seen.
Really?
She was so good, she was terrifying. The recollection of Orson Welles of some of those early Natalie Wood movies. Good, but she kept growing. At 17, the sweetheart of James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, and the first of 3 Oscar nominations.
I'm sorry that I treated you mean today. You shouldn't believe what I say when I'm with the rest of the kids.
Though not known as a singer, her other gifts easily won her a leading role in the smash hit West Side Story.
I believe you. You do have magic.
Of course. She was that Hollywood rarity, the child star who grew up completely. Very much the mature woman in the last married couple in America.
I thought we had something special.
In all, Natalie Wood made more than 40 films, many of them glamorous roles in popular movies. But it wasn't enough. Less than 3 months after her death this weekend, she was scheduled for her first starring role on stage in the play Anastasia. David Dow, CBS News, Hollywood.
The coroner's office said today that actress Natalie Wood was intoxicated and angry after an argument between her husband and actor Christopher Walken when she stormed off a yacht this weekend and apparently fell into the sea. The report said there was no evidence of foul play in the 43-year-old actress's death. Terry Drinkwater has details.
The coroner's autopsy indicated Miss Wood had died by accident.
Shortly after midnight of the Sunday morning, she apparently attempted to get on to the dinghy, slipped and fell in the water, unable to return to the dinghy or the boat.
Coroner Noguchi said under California law, she was legally intoxicated.
Certainly it's one of the contributing factors.
Noguchi also indicated there was an argument between her husband, Robert Wagner, and their guest, actor Christopher Walken. It was not violent and did not involve her, according to Noguchi, but she then walked out of the room anyway. On the resort island of Catalina itself, investigators questioned those involved in the frantic late-night search. After a long evening of partying, Miss Wood apparently left the salon of the family yacht alone. She attempted to board this rubber dinghy. It was here that she fell and drowned. Wagner had often said she was a poor swimmer. He has been in seclusion since yesterday. She had worked in Hollywood for 39 years. It may have all looked easy and wonderful, but at times it wasn't. She once joked that her bills for psychiatry were, quote, at least equal to the annual defense budget of most Central American nations. One of her own favorite films was about marriage.
I never should have brought him here.
This month, she was to complete the picture Brainstorm. Recently, on location, she talked about how much a busy life meant.
It really is a question of trying to figure out how to use your time the best way and to be flexible. Because I think the main thing is to try to be together as much as possible so that everybody, you know, so that you're with your kids enough and with your husband enough and with yourself enough and doing your own thing enough.
Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Hollywood.
The Supreme Court heard arguments today
Accident. That's the finding of Los Angeles coroner Thomas Noguchi in the death of actress Natalie Wood. Her husband, actor Robert Wagner, remains in seclusion at their home today. Friends say the family will hold a private funeral, perhaps tomorrow. Terry Drinkwater has a report from Hollywood.
Fans and friends alike offered what comfort they could to her children and to her husband, Robert Wagner. Meanwhile, the coroner's investigation continues. The autopsy revealed she was legally intoxicated at the time she fell overboard, off the yacht, trying to reach the dinghy.
She was apparently having wine, champagne, perhaps 7, 8 glasses of wine. Certainly will not cause a person to be drunk.
Coroner Noguchi said it was a combination of circumstances. What caused her to come out on deck in the middle of the night?
Argument apparently took place, not involving Miss Wagner, but Mr. Wagner and other actor.
The other actor was Christopher Walken. Noguchi speculated Miss Wood had listened to it long enough. He also said she hit her head on the side of the vessel when she fell. There were scrape marks, he continued, but no evidence of foul play or suicide.
Injury to the face, which would may render temporary unconsciousness.
Where was that injury precisely?
Left cheek and this area.
And the cause of death?
It's a tragic accidental drowning.
Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, glory in the flower, we will grieve not.
In 1961, Miss Wood had the starring role in the movie Splendour in the Grass. The Wagners named their yacht Splendour after the film. It was a story of love never fulfilled, but never ending either. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Hollywood.
The governments of the
word today in Tinseltown, hooray, hooray for Hollywood, and happy birthday. A serious part of the celebration of Hollywood's 100th birthday, the unveiling along the Walk of Fame of star number 1,842 for actress Natalie Wood, late wife of actor Robert Wagner.
The Empire State Building on a great fall day in New York City. Mr. Lonnie Quinn says it's going to be 52 degrees today.
52, nice.
Perfect fall weather. Welcome back to The Early Show. I'm Russ Mitchell.
And I'm Rebecca Jarvis. And in a moment, police have reopened the case of the mysterious drowning death of actress Natalie Wood. CBS's 48 Hours has uncovered some new evidence about what really happened the night she died.
Also this morning, can people read you like a book? Why you could have the kindness gene.
And I think Russ has that one.
Oh.
Also, we'll show you how to save more than 30% on your Thanksgiving dinner. But first, we begin with a case that has been a Hollywood mystery for 30 years, the death of screen legend Natalie Wood. She drowned off the coast of California in 1981. At the time, her death was ruled an accident. But now the case has been reopened, and CBS News' 48 Hours and Vanity Fair magazine have uncovered some startling new evidence. CBS's Lee Cowan reports.
The information we received made us want to take another look at the case.
With that, a mystery that has gripped Hollywood for almost 30 years, the death of screen icon Natalie Wood, was back in the headlines. And one of the reasons is this man.
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
Dennis Davern was the captain of Robert Wagner's boat, the Splendour, the yacht Natalie Wood disappeared from before her body was found off Catalina Island. It was an accident, said the coroner back then. But Davern now reveals Wagner had been arguing with Wood and tells CBS's 48 Hours Wagner not only knew his wife had fallen overboard, he claims he did little to help.
I said to Robert Wagner, maybe I should turn on the searchlight. He said, don't do that.
Investigators won't say what new leads they have, but did answer one question.
Is Robert Wagner a suspect?
No. Wagner admitted to the argument in a 2008 autobiography, but told CBS Sunday Morning back then his wife's death was an accident, nothing more.
We were so in love, and we had everything, and in a second it was gone.
Investigators say they've seen nothing to change their mind. The death of Natalie Wood remains an accident for now. Lee Cowan, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And joining us now from Jacksonville, Florida is Dennis Davern, former captain of the yacht Splendour, and here in New York, Marty Rulli, co-author of Goodbye, Natalie, Goodbye, Splendour. Thank you for being with us, to both of you. Dennis, I want to start with you and just understand why you would change your story after all of these years.
Well, it's not that I've really changed my story. In the very beginning, I told the police what happened that night, but I failed to tell them everything. But for the last 20 years or more, I've been trying to tell the authorities that it would be a good idea if they could take a closer look at the case.
Why not tell them everything in the beginning?
Well, in the very beginning, we were just talked it over, Robert Wagner and myself, that, hey, this is what happened, and this is what we say, and that's exactly what we did.
So you're saying that you and Robert had a discussion about what to say, and that's what you said?
Yes.
I want to understand from you, Marty. You've heard from the police, you've had conversations. What are the police saying now about this investigation?
That they are finally going to take the old information that was never really looked at 30 years ago and give it the attention today that it did deserve 30 years ago. That information that was put out, the media back then went with the accidental drowning, and the authorities didn't ask many questions beyond that. And now I think what they're doing is taking the old files, looking through them, and seeing what they missed. Their agreement now to reopen this case, I think, is an admission that, yes, this case did deserve more attention than it ever did receive.
Does it surprise you then that they're already taking suspects off the board? For example, Robert Wagner, not a suspect here.
Well, they have just begun their investigation. They are not about to name suspects, or they want to give this case the months of attention that it deserved, not the 3 or 4 days that it got in 1981.
Dennis, what new information have you provided to police as of late on this case?
Well, I just told police the arguing that was going on the boat, the tension that was building between Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken, of Robert Wagner's jealousy, and basically the arguing.
All right, well, Robert Wagner, as I just discussed with Marty, has been taken out of the mix here as a suspect. Do you think that is an appropriate read on the situation by police?
At the present time, I would say yes, because no one is a suspect right now.
So who do you think did it?
Well, it really doesn't matter what I think. I think the important thing is that there's a proper investigation done.
But you do think there's somebody who did this, and you do think they were on board that boat that night?
Like I said, it doesn't matter what I think, really. It's up to the investigators to figure this out.
All right, well, we appreciate you being with us, Dennis, and as you as well, Marty. Thank you for being with us this morning. And don't forget to watch 48 Hours Mystery Vanity Fair Hollywood Scandal for new details on the death of Natalie Wood. It is tonight at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, right here on CBS.
Most enduring mysteries, the death of Natalie Wood. She drowned 30 years ago this month while boating off California's Catalina Island with her husband, Robert Wagner. Now, 48 Hours and Vanity Fair have uncovered new evidence, and Lee Cowan reports the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the case today.
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
Dennis Davern says he was there that night as the captain of the Splendour, the yacht that carried actress Natalie Wood and her husband Robert Wagner out to sea on a Thanksgiving weekend. For 30 years, the story had been that Wood fell overboard. No one knew how or when. But Davern tells CBS's 48 Hours he believes Wagner did know and did little to help.
I said to Robert Wagner, maybe I should turn on the searchlight. He said, don't do that.
The next day, Wood's body, clothed in a nightgown and down jacket, was found in the waters off Catalina Island. The coroner ruled it an accident. Wagner and the captain both told investigators the last time they saw Wood, she was below decks in her stateroom, getting ready for bed. But what's different about the captain's story now is he says Wagner and Wood had been arguing.
Yelling, things being thrown about. And then the fighting went back to the back of the boat, and then it was quiet.
LA County Detective John Corina says that and other leads were enough to reopen the case.
This new information is substantial enough for us to want to take another look at the case.
He wouldn't go into detail, but he did answer one question.
Is Robert Wagner a suspect?
No.
The relationship between Wagner and Wood was always tabloid fodder. They'd married each other twice at the height of their careers.
Well, young lady, what's your name?
Susan Walker, what's yours?
Wood came to fame as a child sweetheart in Miracle on 34th Street.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty.
She went on to play alongside Hollywood legends, earning 3 Oscar nods.
What?
But it was on the set of Brainstorm where she became friends with actor Christopher Walken. He was also on the boat that night. In a 2009 autobiography, Wagner said he and Walken had gotten into an argument on deck. He was so mad, he wrote, he smashed a wine bottle. But he told CBS Sunday Morning rumors about just how Natalie Wood ended up overboard are conjecture.
If I had heard anything or known anything, we would have done anything. If we'd have heard anything, nobody heard anything. Nobody knew what happened.
Now, Scott, investigators say for now, nothing has really changed their mind. The death of Natalie Wood remains an accident. But as for that Captain Scott, he certainly has a lot of critics. There are people questioning not only his motives, but the timing of his revelations, coming just shy of the 30th anniversary of a death that has captivated this town ever since.
Lee, thanks very much. There will be more about this on 48 Hours tomorrow night at 10.
More than a year ago, and now it has taken a serious turn. The LA Coroner's Office is expected to release a new report today saying the original autopsy could be wrong and Wood may not have died in an accident. Senior correspondent John Miller, a former LAPD deputy commissioner, has the story.
Sources tell CBS News the review of the 1981 coroner's report raises questions about every major finding that led investigators to originally conclude Natalie Wood's death was an accident. Sources say the report concludes that the bruising on the actress's wrists, knees, and ankles could be more consistent with injuries from an assault than they were from struggling to climb back on a boat. Wood died on November 28, 1981, when, according to her husband, actor Robert Wagner, she fell off their yacht, the 60-foot Splendour, possibly while trying to retie a dinghy that had been banging against the side of the boat, disturbing her sleep. Her body was found hours later, floating in the waters off Catalina Island. Wood's death was ruled an accidental drowning, but in 2011, Los Angeles Sheriff's detectives reopened the case after the skipper of the boat, Dennis Davern, co-authored a book in which he gave a very different account of what happened that night.
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
Davern said there was arguing on the yacht, a fight between Wagner and fellow actor Christopher Walken in which a bottle was thrown. Key to his account is that after Wood went to bed, a loud argument and sounds of an apparent struggle could be heard from her cabin.
The fighting went back to the back of the boat, and then it was quiet.
Davern also says Robert Wagner waited hours after Wood went missing before calling for help. Last year, the LA Coroner's Office changed the cause of Wood's death from accident to undetermined. It remains to be seen if this new information will lead to criminal charges.
John Miller is here. So how significant is this, and what could it change?
Well, it could be very significant because it shows that the coroner is now going down the same path as the sheriff's homicide investigators, which is they have real questions about the circumstances of Natalie Wood's death, or that it should have ever been labeled an accident based on the medical evidence. Now, the sheriff's working with the evidence of the investigation, and so far those haven't come together, but I think what you're going to see is more impetus for the sheriff's homicide investigation to go forward.
We asked you, is this a big deal? And you said it is, and you've talked to people who've read through this whole report, and their reaction has been what about some of the revelations we're going to learn?
I mean, basically, they're saying that this is not a new autopsy. This is the old autopsy with a supplemental report written on the bottom where the current medical examiner, the coroner of LA County, basically calls into question every finding about the injuries or the conclusion that it's an accident. And when you take the circumstances as we've now come to learn them, Natalie Wood was, in her nightgown in bed. She supposedly goes out to retie this dinghy. She can't swim. She's afraid of the dark. She's afraid of the water. It sounds very unlikely she would have done that, especially when the captain of the skipper was there and he was awake and she could have told him to do that.
So specifically, what are the key things in this report that are raising new questions?
The location, the position, the shape and size of the bruises, the fact that they are arguably more consistent with either being restrained during a struggle or defensive wounds than they are with trying to climb back onto a dinghy that you were hanging onto through the night. And the fact that out of 200 boats in that cove, and now I'm shifting out of the autopsy into the investigation, only one person has ever said that they heard her calling for help while she was supposed to be drowning.
So on questions like bruises, why didn't they get that the first time in the first report?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, Charlie, which was, did they mail it in? Was this a thing where we had a big Hollywood star there, you had people who wanted to avoid bad publicity, and you didn't have a smoking gun murder, and they just gave it a once-over? But I think the signal we're going to get when this report is released later today that they concluded too fast.
So is the suggestion that she may have been killed before going overboard?
I think that the overarching suggestion from the observations made in the supplemental are going to be that she was already unconscious in some likelihood when she went into the water, which suggests, I mean, it certainly raises the possibility.
So how did she get into the water?
It certainly raises the possibility she had some help getting there, and when you're unconscious, we call that suspicious.
Thank you, John.
All right, John Miller, thank you.